Hello and welcome to ACM's Vault of Cult, the podcast where I discuss a cult film that I grew up with, loving, a film that maybe didn't do so well or didn't get such good reviews, but I remember fondly. I showed a film to someone who has not seen the film before, not grown up with it, to see whether it is actually a good film or it's just nostalgia clouding my eyes. Thanks for everyone who listened to the last show. We've done Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Probably the most out there film we've done so far, certainly the most violent. I'm sticking with the comedy horror for this. I'm doing a classic monster movie released in 1990 that spawned 6 sequels so far, a TV series, and there was even a pilot episode for another TV series that didn't quite make it. Starring Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, I am of course talking about the classic Tremors, a film that I watched on TV many times, but not many people saw in theatres. And I rewatched it recently, as did a friend. He hadn't seen it before. This is a conversation we had about that movie. Okay, so we've both seen Tremors. I'm rewatching it for the gazillionth time. And my guest today has seen it for the first time. Would you like to introduce yourself? You're back.
Hello, I'm Andrew, back by not popular demand, but or any demand in fact, but necessity.
And we will plug your musical duo as well.
Oh yes, I am in terms of physical mass 2/3 of the Ipswich-based terrible duo, the Pukajee Players.
Giving yourself the best review you've ever had there. And we're going to talk movie. You joined. I think there's only one of these podcasts in this series, the first series, you haven't been on.
Yeah.
Which was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. What was the last episode? Did you listen?
I haven't yet, I'm afraid. I'm a jealous man.
Okay, so you'd never seen Tremors before. Is there a reason for not seeing it?
No, just ignorance, I suspect. I think I slightly lumped it in with a lot of the films that perhaps spawned, these sort of slightly straight to the Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh yes,
terrible films.
Ten-headed shark.
Yeah, I kind of just assumed it was one of them, but it's not.
No, it's certainly not. I'm 30 years old this year. It spawned 6 sequels, one of which comes out in October.
Hey.
And I will mention before we get going, there's coming out soon a big sort of special edition Blu-ray limited edition big old box thing, which means I'll probably have to re-buy it. But going into it, you thought that you hadn't read any reviews or seen any clips?
No, I'd heard someone say it was good and that Kevin Bacon was in it.
Yeah.
And that's about all I knew, really.
I think this might have been my first introduction to Kevin Bacon as a kid. Yeah. I think I definitely saw it before Footloose. Possibly not before Animal House, but he wasn't in that much of Animal House, was he?
No, because I was reading about this. Oh yeah, he's in Animal House. Is he?
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen that. I don't really remember him being in it.
No, he's just one of the students, and he was also in the first Friday the 13th as well, where he's got a memorable death where he's stabbed through the back of the neck. And he's sort of done a fair bit of horror over the years, sort of Hollow Man, and he's released a new one recently, which I totally forget the name of, but I watched the other night.
Oh, right.
You should have left, or something like that. It's called.
That's fairly standard kind of horror name.
Yeah, it's based on a novel, and it's him and Amanda Seyfried, and it's not that bad. It's all right. It's not, but not. I don't see it as going to be the cult classic that this one has become.
No.
The fact that it spawned all those sequels, there's been a TV series, and Kevin Bacon himself was even involved in a pilot episode for another TV series, which was filmed 2 years ago. But for some reason, the series was never greenlit.
You'd have thought it's sort of his star power. I mean, he only does the EE adverts these days, doesn't he? But
yeah, and films with Amanda Seyfried, which would have got to the cinema if it wasn't for COVID, I believe.
Curse you!
Yeah. So I think he does the adverts for the money, and I think his career is still doing okay.
Yeah, I'm being slightly facetious.
But I mean, it's one of those with this film. I mean, I think his name attached to it really helped it.
Yeah.
But before the film was made, he wasn't looking forward to it at all. I don't think he really wanted to do it. I think he'd had a few hits with Footloose. She's Having a Baby, the John Hughes one, I think done quite well.
Oh, was that before?
That was before, yeah. And And he says that he broke down on the sidewalk screaming to his pregnant wife, "I can't believe I'm doing a movie about underground worms." That was an exact quote from him. So he was obviously a bit... but then afterwards, he said that it's the single most fun that I've ever had making a movie my entire career. So maybe he just...
We said he's a big old phony, is that what we're saying?
Well, it might be a matter of once he got on set, he just enjoyed it. And I think people who are in these kind of films... especially the ones you mentioned for the sci-fi ones, you can kind of tell if the actors enjoying them, and a lot of them do quite a few of them who don't necessarily need to.
Yeah.
So I think they must be fun to make. I mean, a film like this, which is, we'll start by, before we talk about the plot, we'll talk about the special effects, because it's all pretty much practical, isn't it?
And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it all.
Did you think it looked good when you see the?
I thought it looked great. Yeah, it's aged really well. I don't think it's the practical effects that sort of set us apart, because if you'd imagine whatever kind of CGI attempts they might have managed in 1990,
yeah, I mean it
would have been awful.
Yeah, I mean it was released in 1990, but it was made in 1989. It was a bit of a delay, but it doesn't particularly feel an 80s or 90s movie.
No, not at all.
But I think that it kind of, I suppose the retro appeal now is the practical special effects. A lot of it's actually puppets. And it starts, the way that the film builds, you sort of like a traditional horror. You sort of see parts of the monster before the big reveal, and at first you see the tentacles which come from its mouth, so they think it's just snakes. And I think a lot of that's done by puppetry.
Yeah, and there's sort of that combination of miniatures and then full size sort of live action kind of stuff as well. There's that really good shot, isn't there, where I was reading about that thinking, oh, that looked good, and looked it up. The bit where what's-his-face drops the gun, and there's that, it looks like one single shot going, and it goes from sort of the full-size stuff into the miniatures, and you don't really notice.
Yeah.
And it's really, really well done.
I mean, that's a combination of great practical special effects, and the way it's filmed is fantastic. And some of the shots are almost... You see about the premise is these giant worms under the ground attacking people, and they sense movement, and there's a few shots where the camera goes above the ground and moves along where the monsters would be, almost like sort of shot like Evil Dead.
Yeah,
you see that sort of camera work, and I think it's a great premise. I mean, the plot is fairly basic, isn't it? It's two guys trying to leave town. As they're leaving, they find a guy up an electricity pole, and he's dead, and they can't really work out why, and it turns out that he's hiding from one of these monsters who can't sense him up there, and he starves, and then various things happen, and more people die. They end up being stuck in the town, and it's basically let's hide from the monsters, then let's kill the monsters. But just over 90 minutes. I don't think it gets boring at all.
No, not at all.
Quite tense in parts, and most importantly, it's quite a funny film.
Yeah.
Would you class it as a comedy horror? It's
probably. I mean, it's not going. It's sort of the horror's played straight, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just the characters are sort of funny and endearing.
Yeah, and there's a couple who are obsessed with guns, and so there's a lot of humour in that. And the two main characters, as it Earl and
Valentine and Earl, isn't it?
Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon are just these sort of bumbling handymen who bicker a lot, and I think that chemistry really works. And that's one of the things that don't dwell too much on the sequels, but some of them are quite enjoyable. But it hasn't got the character chemistry that it has in these, and there's definitely two fine actors who I can see why Kevin Bacon going into this would have been weary.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot better film than the premise suggests.
Yes. So
the fact he's in it not only gives it credibility, the film itself actually backs up him being in it.
Yeah, it justifies it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Fred Ward, who's a great actor, who usually sort of plays the villain, and he's like the evil sort of menacing dad in Joe Dirt, and lots of comedies like that.
Yeah.
And he was in The Right Stuff and loads of things.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I think 89 credits he's had, and he's actually in the first of the Tremors sequels, and his career started in 1973, so he'd been acting 17 years before this.
Right.
And he's a really solid actor. He's just sort of character actor you describe him as, which I suppose Kevin Bacon's been himself over the years. It's sort of, he's not, when you look at Kevin Bacon, he's not really starred in that many films.
No, he hasn't really, is he?
Yeah, he's been in films like Diner, and so I mentioned Hollow Man, but that's not really known as his film. That's more of just a horror. And The Woodsman was another one which he got critically acclaimed for, which he did star in. But then there's films like come out the same year, Flatliners, which is a cast.
He's a brilliant actor though, but never quite sort of gets the recognition I suspect he deserves.
Yeah, I'd totally agree. But he's always likeable and fun in films.
Yeah.
I'm just going to find out what that film was called, because I've got the Blu-ray. I just want to get. I don't want to get the facts wrong. You Should Have Left is what it was called. Came out this year. I think it was going to get a cinema release, but because of COVID, it didn't.
Oh, that was quite spooky, that.
Yeah, it's all right. It's how to describe it. It's a solid 3 out of 5.
Oh,
that's a quick review I've thrown in for the
bonus. That's money.
That's when someone was mentioned to me they were reading the book and they said there was a film, and the fact that Kevin Bacon was in it, and it went straight to DVD Blu-ray, and it was a tenner on Blu-ray. So I thought that's the price nearly of the cinema. So I'll give it a go. Yeah, sorry, going back, go back to... We mentioned Kevin Bacon. Should we talk about the other cast? Fred Ward, who's pretty damn good in it. The female lead, now, Finn Carter, had you seen her in anything else before?
I don't think so, but she did look quite familiar. I feel like I should have known who she was.
Yeah, I mean, this is anything I can actually say I recognise her in. So I think she had about 39 credits, 38, 39, and she stopped working in 2005. So it gets weird. I mean, she was in stuff like The Outer Limits and TV shows like that.
Oh.
Last year, she was arrested in Vegas for using someone's credit card without permission, and there's 14 cases of this, and so that's all sort of in court at the moment.
Don't need to be acting though.
And
that kind of money.
So there's that, and she's up for that in grand larceny, is what it says.
Oh.
And that's all I can really. There's a mugshot picture of her online. There's not much else. So I think that's all.
She got the sun cream on her nose in the mugshot.
That's a good bit to say. But she was relatively unknown. She'd been in a TV show called As the World Turns for 3 years, and just watching a little interview with the filmmakers, that she just blew them away in the casting. That she got the role, and I've always thought she's pretty good in it, and quite surprised she didn't go on to anything else or the sequels.
Yeah.
But it sounds like she could be quite a troubled person.
Yeah.
So who knows? And if so, it's a shame, because I think she's great in that role.
Yeah.
Other cast members, Michael Grosh, who was the is it Bert?
Yeah, Bert Gummer.
Yeah, Bert, who's in all the other films, even the fourth one, which is a western.
Former MP for Ipswich.
Yeah, not based on him. But he's in all the sequels, and at least the actual TV series that got going. There was the one more. I think the Sci-Fi Channel made it in those 13 episodes, and I believe he plays the grandfather of Bert in the fourth part, which is a western.
Oh, great!
So he's sort of really taken his role on himself, and he was the only actor who attended the 30th anniversary screenings.
Oh, bless him!
He
is brilliant.
He's really good in it, and the character. I say the chemistry isn't there between two leads in the other films, but the fact he's there gives it that.
Yeah,
so
Eugene Levy in American Pie.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but less lame. But he was in Family Ties, which obviously where Michael J. Fox came
of course, yeah.
But that's a sitcom that I never saw. I've never seen that growing up, and I've not seen it repeated.
Has it ever really made it over?
I don't know. You'd think it would have done. It probably has shown up in reruns and on Sky Channel and something. Now his wife is played by a country singer. Have you heard of her?
Yeah, Reba McEntire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that into country music. Don't get me. I don't dislike it. But I've never heard of her. I know her as the woman from Tremors.
Yeah.
Who
sings the theme tune?
Does she?
It's the song at the end. That's her.
Oh, I did not know that. I looked up the music, and it's we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Well, actually, I read a story about the music and I couldn't find it again, so you might be able to help me on that.
Yeah, I might be able to get some light on that.
Melvin, another great character. Robert Jane.
Because he was in the Wonder Years, wasn't he? But he wasn't the older brother. He was only in a couple of episodes.
Yeah,
but in my head, I was like, oh, that's Fred Savage's older brother.
That's so weird. No, it's not. It's weird you say that, because watching the film, moments of it reminded me of him, and we recently reviewed The Monster Squad, and he's in that, isn't he?
I thought it was the same lad, but it's not.
It's not.
But he was in the Wonder Years, in a different role. But that properly confused me. I spent about 20 minutes trying to work that one out on the internet. Where's he been?
He's another actor who's done a lot of TV work, and he was in one of the sequels as well. I've got to rewatch the sequels, because he was in not only 2 episodes of the TV series of Tremors, which I haven't seen, he was in the third film as well. And the third film also featured the actress who played the little girl. Do you know much about her?
She was in Jurassic Park, wasn't she?
Yeah.
As the little girl in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Irena Richardson, she should give up acting as well, I think. She was in Jurassic Park 1 and 2, Tremors 3 and a few other sort of TV things. I get the feeling she's going to come back for one of the newer Jurassic Parks.
Oh, right.
I think I read that somewhere.
They've dug up just about everyone else, haven't they?
Yeah.
She's got to be the only one left at this point.
But she stopped acting really young, and often that happens with child actors. Yeah. Sometimes not a bad thing, because the way it can go for some.
Yeah.
But I think they all do a great job. The younger cast, especially. And just to quickly mention Victor Wong, who from Big Trouble in Little China, Golden Child, great sort of
fantastic.
He plays the sort of comedy role in a few things. And I forgot to look it up. There was another character who played. Was it Marcel?
Miguel.
So,
Tony Gennaro.
Yeah, he looks familiar as well. But
I couldn't place him.
Yeah, I meant to look it up.
He shows up in everything a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was really enjoying watching the film.
Yeah.
I quickly watched. There's a little making of on the DVD. So I've done less research than I normally do. But it's one of those. It's a very enjoyable film, and I'd count it as a cult film. But it didn't get that negative reviews. So there's not as many sort of funny stories about it as with a lot of the films. But we'll just quickly to talk about the director as well. It's his first film. Ron Underwood done a bit of TV, and him and the writers made educational films. The writers S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock.
They did Short Circuit.
They done Short Circuit, yeah.
Battery's Not Included.
Battery's Not Included with the 2 hits, which is how they got to make this film. Co-wrote some of the cartoon MASH. Not MASH, so Mask.
Oh, right,
And in between... just before this, I believe, they'd done Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby, which is not very good. But I think that was quite a big hit. Then it all sort of went wrong for them. They done Wild Wild West, basically. They wrote that.
Because watching it, there were elements where I thought, this reminds me a bit of Barry Sonnenfeld.
Yeah.
Who did Addams Family, Men in Black, Wild West. There are moments where I sort of was watching it thinking, I wish maybe they'd lean slightly more into that kind of, that black comedy, Barry Sonnenfeld, slightly Joe Dante kind of thing. Yeah. Because it's great as it is, but there are moments where I thought, if they'd been a bit more dark and surreal, this film might have been...
That might have been why they chose him for Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
I'd definitely see the Joe Dante thing, because Joe Dante done Gremlins, of course, and he's really influenced by B movies. And I'd see this as a kind of a homage to B movies, but it's definitely its own thing as well.
Yeah, it's not get caught up in spoof or parody or...
Yeah. But it's for the time, a modern B movie, it's sort of 40 years after the big surge of them. But yeah, that's kind of what I like about it, that it is funny, but it's not stupid or a spoof.
Yeah.
But going back to the director, he done City Slickers straight after, which was a big hit.
Oh.
I love that film, Billy Crystal. And then he done Speechless, Mighty Joe Young, and then the last...
Mighty Joe Young? Yeah. I loved that film as a kid.
I've never seen it.
I remember thinking, that was brilliant. Yeah. Maybe it isn't, but I remember loving it.
We should do a reverse one of these shows where I watch it, because I've never seen it.
That might be cool.
We could do that. Maybe for season 2, because I'm kind of doing one of them at the end of the season, as I think you know. Yeah. And then that would be nice, because I haven't seen it, and it must be easy to get hold of.
It's a long time since I've seen it, but I remember thinking it was great.
Yeah, well, he done that, and then he done The Adventures of Pluto Nash, which the Eddie Murphy Mega Bomb, which simply wasn't very good.
Yeah.
A mate of mine bought me that DVD telling me it is good and I would enjoy it. I appreciate him doing that, but
you have now taken out a restraining order against him.
it wasn't very good. In my humble opinion, and these podcasts have proved that I like some right shit. So yeah, I mean, going back to the B movie thing, I mean, I think what's great about it is it's got that sort of, it's about being isolated. The whole premise of when they're on the rocks, they're safe. They're being sensed. Vibrations and sound is kind of scary, and that's you can feel for the protagonists, and it's kind of a bit like A Quiet Place, which was a big hit more recently. It's been compared to Dune as well, the underground worms and getting on the rocks safety. I haven't seen Dune for years, but there's not special edition, the remake coming out, or thing, because it was based on a novel. But the special effects in this I thought were better than in Dune. But then Dune was a fair few years before it.
And was a bit rubbish.
Yeah, it's
cool, but a bit.
Yeah, it's one of those films I think people like because they want to.
Yeah.
I do like David Lynch, but it's not one of his most memorable.
I don't think he likes it much, does
he? He was offered Empire Strikes Back before.
Return of the Jedi, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought it was Empire, but I might be wrong.
Know.
But one of them and turned it down and done that. But Elephant Man was good, so we'll forgive him.
Yeah.
But the whole
right, isn't he? Well, I think he can cope with whatever criticism we might send his way. Because he's a top bloke, isn't he?
But he listen, drowned in his tears.
Drowned in his still cool haircut.
Yeah, how cool he.
How has he got away with that? He must be old as. His hair is brilliant.
I think he's an underrated actor as well. Do you remember him when he was actually in Twin Peaks?
Oh yeah,
he was brilliant. He'd have been good in this. But we'll return to it.
Right, yes.
But one thing that does make it different from other horror films, because it could be like Alien with monster and all, but it's not dark. It's all set, or mostly set during the day.
That's an interesting kind of
sort of bright sand, and they were going for the feel of they didn't want it all slimy. They wanted it sort of dry, and but then after some of the dailies, it didn't look great. So it's sort of slimy in the mouth of the monster. Yeah. And there's a bit where it crashes through, and the first sort of proper reveal.
Oh yeah.
And you see all the gunk come out of his mouth, and apparently the first
gross.
First test screening that went down pretty well, and it was going to be an R-rated film. But they cut it down, not violence, but swearing. Oh. I don't know if you noticed they say mother humper.
Oh yeah, and can you fly, sucker?
Yeah, and that's when I first saw this film, I thought that was edited for TV.
Oh wait, yeah.
But no, it was. There's a couple of Fs in it. There's one where he really shouts it. But I think in America it would have been PG-13 when it came out.
So R is a 15.
R is 17 in America.
Okay.
They have PG-13, so basically PG and 12. And then R, which is 17.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is quite a good rating system. But you can see I don't know if it's still the same. But when I studied film,
I like Wes Anderson.
when I done my BTEC in media, which there was a film bit in, we looked up certificates, and you could go and see it with an adult, whatever age you wanted.
Oh,
and then there was another one which is NR, I think, where you couldn't. And very, very
few. Is that for like your serious filth?
Yeah, very few films. I mean, you could have been 12 and gone with your dad and watched Pulp Fiction in the 90s.
If my dad had taken me to watch Pulp Fiction, he'd have fallen asleep.
my dad still refuses to watch it.
My dad's only seen 3 films, I think. 2 of them are Laurel and Hardy ones, and the other's Apollo 13.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well, yeah.
One of those Laurel and Hardy films is terrible.
Utopia.
Yeah, but this is saying that this is a film that I did watch when I was younger with my parents, and they enjoyed it as well. I think because it's got that almost timeless horror feel without. Okay, there's sort of jumpy moments and a few deaths. I think there's 10 deaths in total.
But they're all quite funny, aren't they? I don't know why they're...
Two are off screen as well, because you see like...
Oh, the hat.
And then you've got the sort of... where Victor Wong's character is sort of in the mouth of the monster.
Oh, of course,
which is almost... It reminded me a bit of sort of Jaws, that bit.
The whole film's quite like Jaws.
Yeah, well, it was originally going to be called Land Sharks. And then because of the Saturday Night Live character Land Shark, I don't know if you ever saw it, they changed it. Which, if you don't know, you're not aware of that, listeners, that was before Jaws 2 came out. They done a Jaws 2, and it's just Jaws like knocking on people's doors. Candygram, you're that shark, aren't you? No.
I'd read a thing about that, actually, with regards to the Jaws thing.
Yeah.
That in Sweden they called this film Worm Summer.
Okay.
Because Jaws had been called Shark Summer, and they just thought, we'll market it in the same way as that and call it that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But the one thing it hasn't got to the same standard as Jaws is the music, which we were going to talk about. Now, I've made some notes on that, but I made some on the wrong page. I don't really know what I'm doing.
Don't tell them that.
Right, what have you got about music? Because was there not... This is what I couldn't find. Didn't someone do most of the music, then they changed it?
Yeah, so originally it was a chap called Ernest Troost who did it. And, when it's all the sort of the fun kind of slightly like Zydeco kind of country harmonica-y fun stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the sort of weird eerie noise kind of stuff, that's all him.
Yeah.
I really like most of that. I think it works with the film. It's sort of slightly odd and slightly out of place, but it works with the strange dynamic that the film has. Yeah. And then I think they got cold feet with that score quite late in the game. We're like, oh no, we need something that's a bit more conventional, kind of, not John Williams because they couldn't afford John Williams, but a bit more kind of...
Do you know who they got in?
Because it was Robert Folk, I think.
Do you know what else he done?
No.
Because the original guy is the only one credited.
Yeah.
And I read this somewhere, and when I read it, I think I was just sort of looking on my phone while probably at work, and I didn't make a note of it, and I was like, just couldn't find it again. So yeah, this happened with when we were talking about Super Mario Brothers. The same thing happened with the score with that, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
But the original guy's got 88 credits, but that's he's mainly he done the film Dead Heat a few years before this. But it's mainly sort of TV stuff, light-hearted things in cartoons he was doing.
Which kind of shows.
Yeah, I think they probably changed it so it didn't feel just comedy.
Yeah, but the thing is, he made some quite spooky noises. You know that bit with the older couple who get done in the dark.
Yeah,
I think all that music is him. I think.
Yeah, it's just, did it not sort of change more towards the end?
Yeah, and then it gets more sort of conventional kind of orchestral strings, kind of slightly synthy.
Yeah,
but it's still good, but it's not particularly memorable.
No.
But I was reading, apparently, when he was doing that, he thought he had quite a while to get a new score going, and then it turned out that he only had a week to do it. So, considering that, he did a great job.
Yeah, because I mean, I suppose that was rushed, but I suppose they had to finish the film, then it was shelved for about a year.
Yeah.
Which might have actually helped for Kevin Bacon and the film in general, because I think it would have come out before Flatliners if they hadn't shelved it. And that was quite a big hit. I'm assuming it was a big hit because there's been a remake, and they tend to only remake.
Oh yeah, was that any good?
It was bollocks.
Oh, okay.
That's good. I wasn't a fan.
I like it when they do remakes and they're terrible.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying when they're good, isn't it? So that might have helped. And another thing, they've done a fair few test screenings, I think, and the way it ended. He didn't get the Kevin Bacon didn't get with the girl, and the test screeners didn't like that. And at the end, they have a little kiss, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think that's very Hollywood, and not necessarily needed.
I'm quite down for that not happening because they've not got a future together, have they?
But they might have done because they're the two who aren't in the others.
They don't have a future. Yeah. Look at them.
Nah.
That's nah.
Get that off your nose. He'd say to her.
Yeah.
But I think that's just to please audiences. There could have been a lot more they'd done to change it. And it was only the last scene.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying, why did they do? They've ruined the film.
But also at the beginning of the film, Fred Ward's character seemed to quite like her because when they first talk, and then he just totally goes off her and is like, you go for it, youngster." So that's a bit strange. There's a nice little reference as well towards the end where they say they can get in People magazine. And then in the second one, the only reference you've got is an article of Kevin Bacon in People magazine.
Nice.
Which was nice. And I had a mixed memory of when I watched Teen Wolf 2. I thought it was you saw an article about Michael J. Fox. But it wasn't. It was from this. My brain. It was the Family Ties connection that done it. I think
you've created an ACM's Vault of Cult cinematic universe in your head.
Yeah, or just Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great if all the films we've done linked up? How the Dark and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
They're all crap.
They're not all crap. So far, though, I've
been very enthusiastic.
Yeah,
I'll take any opportunity I can to be rude.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which reminds me, put your trousers back on. So, another interesting-ish fact: there's only 2 exterior scenes in the whole film. Everything else is outside.
2 interior scenes.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
Yeah. The rest is exterior. Yeah,
that's
not posterior.
So what? So there's in the shop.
In the shop and in Bert's.
Oh, of course, when it all gets smashed in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you count inside cars, because there's a few, but that's not really doesn't really count, does it?
Despite that, quite claustrophobic as a film, isn't it?
Yeah.
For such vast open spaces.
Well, I think it's that kind of almost works for the film because
definitely
they're underground, so there's the opportunity of being able to run away. If you're inside, you're just dead, aren't you?
Yeah.
So that's different, and I can't think of another film like that.
No. It is very good, this film, isn't it?
It is one of those. This is why wasn't it a bigger hit? This is. I'll get onto the question a bit earlier than normally. Do you definitely think it should have been a big hit?
Oh yeah. You watch it and think this. It's very similar to sort of Jaws, Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park. That sort of perfect execution of what it wanted to be.
Yeah. And
it particularly for such a small budget.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic.
It really does. I mean, the creatures look great. Just the way it's shot looks good, and you can see why after this he went on to do City Slickers.
Yes,
because of the landscapes are great, and it's what makes it stand out. And maybe this sort of throws people, maybe traditional horror fans.
Maybe.
I mean, and that's what I feel because it's got that different feel. The comedy works. But also, if it had been, it cost 11 million and it made 16, so it didn't flop majorly. I think that it could have made a lot more for if a film's got a low budget but is aimed at a bigger audience, it's still considered. Talking of remakes earlier, it probably made less money than the Ghostbusters remake, but then the Ghostbusters remake had more spent on it.
Yeah.
So you've got but it made more than 3 times its box office gross on video rentals and sales, which is where the film made money. And I feel that's why they felt the need to do the straight-to-video sequels. If it had made more money at the cinema, then possibly they'd have got Kevin Bacon back earlier. Yeah. I don't know whether he has warmed to the film and didn't like it so much at first. I mean, it took 18 years for him to come back for a TV sort of follow-up.
Yeah,
or maybe the budgets were... They simply thought, we can play on the creatures... in a smaller way than say when they done a second Predator, they didn't get Arnie, but then I think Arnie might have refused to do that. But you see what I'm saying?
2 with Arnie would have been weird though.
True. So I feel that's because we're used to the other one.
Yeah, maybe.
But sometimes I think when they're looking at this, they want to make they think, okay, well this film made X amount on video, so let's make one straight to video for a lower budget than.
Yeah.
What we already had, and then we could possibly get more profit. And for the first sequel, they got Fred Ward back, which is quite good. But I do remember in the first one, because Fred Ward's there, you miss Kevin Bacon even more because you're used to the 2 of them together.
They are a really good double act.
Yeah, and you've got Michael Gross still, which is good. And then it sort of takes over as he becomes the lead, and then it becomes. The series of films almost turns into a TV series spin-off itself.
Yeah.
And they go more CGI, and they do, but they've still got that humour. They're by no means as good as this, but I don't dislike them at all. I've pre-ordered the new one because I'm a nerd.
Brilliant.
So I can see why it went that route. Whereas a film like, say, The Lost Boys, when you got the straight-to-video sequels years later, that just felt a bit lame. They got a few of the cast back, but not the leads. And because that was a huge hit, they should have followed it up straight away. But I think with that, the people behind it want to do something different, but they see there's money there.
Yeah.
And Tremors 2 wasn't too long after the first one, so it was kind of I think it was about 3 years. I'm not 100%. I'll have a quick bit. No, I won't. I ain't going to have a quick bit. Just people can look it up themselves. But the second one came out and it never felt quite what it should have been. But then they persevered.
Yeah.
And the two guys who wrote the films with the director, one of them directed the second and fourth, and the other directed the third.
Alright.
And it's after that the 2, 5 and 6 sort of become more their own and more modern sort of take on it.
Yeah.
But it kind of, apart from Bert, it follows the story of the creatures, not the two leads from the first one.
But do they sort of remove some of the mystery about it?
And there's other creatures appear in some of the sequels. So there's sort of the build to them, and you find out more about them, where they're from, and what more they can.
I don't know if I like not knowing.
Yeah, but you can't.
I appreciate it. But the question is, well, why have you made a sequel to this film?
Money. That's
money. Yeah.
It's kind of, you could say that about what they've done with Alien. It's all the build up and the tenseness, and then with the second one, I think it's a good choice to just make it an action film with the creature in.
Yeah, it was all they really could do, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always thought what would have been nice for Tremors 2 would have been a massive budget, Tremors going to New York or something.
Yeah.
That would have been insane, but think how much that would have cost to make, especially back then.
Yeah.
So,
but, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll still do that one day.
Who knows? The way it's going, I see a few more straight-to-video sequels. Or a reboot completely, and then who knows? But it's what's nice, like you mentioned Isolation earlier, is it's set in a town, but I don't know if you noticed the population's only 14 in the town. So that's it's almost like 2-3 households, and that's obviously a budget thing. So firstly, so you can get the landscape and they can escape and do all this. So there's not too much going on, and you can focus on it's scarier, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
a film where there's a teenager being stalked is for some reason a lot scarier than a big monster trampling on a city. Which is
tone,
because and you can relate to it more. If I saw Godzilla out that window now, I'd probably just die, pass out, scared. And that's not for a viewer entertaining. I've never thought
quite entertaining.
But have you not thought that with Godzilla films? They'd be more scared than they are, surely.
That's the thing, isn't it? I watch these. I mean, even in this, you sort of watch and think, if I was in that situation, I would just do myself in. I couldn't cope with it.
One of my favourite lines, not just from this, but from any film ever, is where Fred Ward's character says, "Have you ever seen anything like that before?" And Kevin Bacon goes, "Yeah, we all know about them. We just didn't tell you." which is just use something reminder. That's just a really funny line.
Yeah. And
there's quite a serious bit when Fred Ward's talking to Finn Carter's character, and they're sort of talking about the monster when you see his face, and Kevin Bacon disappears, and you just hear him from the background, "I found the arse end," and he's lifting the arse up. And then the bit as well where there's some of the comedy where the what's his name? I always forget the name. Victor Wong's character buys the snake off them when they think it's a snake for $15 after haggling for ages. Then he's charging people in the to have a picture with it for $3. Which, when you think about it, there's only 14 people in that town, so he couldn't make that much money off it. But the little jokes like that possibly wouldn't happen if it was real. I don't think you'd talk like that. It's kind of too relaxed, but that's what gives it the comedy feel.
It's all in commas, isn't it? The whole thing.
Yeah.
A bit Brechtian.
Yeah.
I'm channeling my Owen now. Listeners to previous podcasts will expect something a bit boring and pretentious from the Bearded Wonder. So that was my contribution on his behalf.
Owen should be here now, but he watched the wrong film. So maybe he'll come to one of the others. And Lewis, who done another one, he sort of half watched it, didn't he?
Yeah, his heart wasn't in it yesterday, I don't think.
That's a shame. But this is a film that, I watch a lot of horrors, a lot of B movies, and certain ones I'll really enjoy, but wouldn't recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I think I would.
This is a just a proper, really good film, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's flawless in execution.
So would you any sort of audience you wouldn't want to? I mean, also it's one I think, apart from the odd swear, it's not too bad for kids to watch.
Yeah.
It's a 15, but it's probably a 12 now.
Yeah.
So it's one of those.
Once you're at sort of 8 or 9, I think you probably cope with this quite nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're that age, a puppet can scare you, or something in Casper possibly, and then you can watch a Freddy Krueger film. So when it comes to horror, I think it's generally down to the individual kid, unless there's sort of sexual violence in it or too much swearing, that sort of thing. I think that's what I think. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, which you're still to listen to, that I was shown Halloween when I was really young.
Oh yeah,
and that's there's a little bit of nudity in it, it's not that graphic with the killings.
They're at a rock and roll high school, isn't it?
PJ Stoles, who was in Strikes with Bill Murray.
Oh, of course she was. Yeah. I went down the slightly rubbish Ramones film instead of maybe the best film I've made.
I quite like Rock and Roll High School. I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, but it's no Stripes, is it?
No. That's co-directed but uncredited by Joe Dante.
What, Rock and Roll High School?
Yeah.
So it's got that bloke out of Death Race 2000 in it, hasn't it? Playing basically the same character. Kind of news reporter, man.
Oh, yeah, of course. And
it's got Joey Ramone in it as well.
And some of the other Ramones. The ones who were in the Ramones at that time.
Who was the drummer at that point? I don't know. No one wants to.
Ringo Starr.
Ringo Ramone.
Yeah, that's a film worth watching.
Sorry, I've derailed you.
Yeah, so go back to. Did we say the budget? Yeah, it did 11 million, and it made 16. So that's not bad at all, but still considered quite a flop. And it's one of those. I think. I'm not going to say it's influential because it's taken from other films, but maybe like you sort of said, it's the tone of the film that makes it different, and possibly it could have influenced a lot of things like Sharknado and that sort of thing.
Eight-legged freaks.
But not in the way that the films are made because they've been making them for years, but the fact that they can do it well.
Yeah.
So if anything, it could up the game of B movies.
It's. Perhaps it's slightly silly to draw a Star Wars comparison, but Star Wars kind of was doing the same thing in terms of kind of refining and kind of drawing all these kinds of influences in, ripping them off just enough to make it its own thing, and sort of elevating the art form, arguably.
Yeah.
To sound like Owen again.
But and around that time, I mean, the only sort of things I can really compare it to are like Critters and Gremlins, that sort of. But they're more sort of little creatures opposed to a big monster.
Yeah.
But what I do like is what comes from the low budget films that you don't see a lot of the. It's great that you don't see it. It's underground, so that. I mean, I can't think of anything that's ever been done before with apart from Dune, which is only part of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they're being attacked from under.
And it's still hard to know how much of that was, say, miniatures or sort of full size kind of digging things up, and it's just really well made. Wow.
Yeah. And when you see the monsters as well, it doesn't look. It moves great. It doesn't look like sometimes you'll see like when we done Howard the Duck at the end when you see the big monster. It looks all right, but it doesn't look real. Does that make sense?
that was that a sort of stop frame, rather than puppetry. I wonder.
Yeah.
Because there's one shot in this that looks a bit weird like that, where they've clearly kind of green screened a bit of I think it's a bit where Bert's shooting it.
Yeah.
There's just one shot, and you think, oh,
yeah.
Everything else looks real and there, and that's just the one bit where you can see the joins. And you think, oh.
Yeah, that might be one that if you watch it on the restored version,
maybe
might look a lot better.
Yeah.
Bert's character was they said be Chuck Norris. That was a thing for that, and around that era. Chuck would have been pretty big, wouldn't he, in 1990 still?
Yeah.
And
Chuck Norris.
Legend. I like that. Unfortunately, I'm not. There's no sort of. I can't really do a Chuck Norris film for this podcast because I'm not. I like him, but let's face it, he hasn't made many really good films.
No, good films he's in, he's kind of been the supporting guy, really.
Yeah, but he makes fun films.
Yes.
So this is about films that kind of passionate about, and with Tremors, it was one of those that everyone as a kid seemed to watch it. I actually had it on the same you might be too young, but did you ever just video films off the telly?
Yeah.
I had a 4-hour video, and it was Tremors and Howard the Duck on the same tape.
Great.
And that's what we'll have to do in Howard the Duck. I wanted to do Critters. That was a straight-to-video one, actually, originally in this country, Critters.
Oh, was it?
But I thought Critters, not Gremlins, but Tremors is that era. And I just got thinking about Tremors, and I did watch it over and over. I remember it was high school, and it was that film, did you watch that when you was younger? So even then,
yeah.
I mean, it was made released in 1990. I'd have probably watched it late primary school. It'd be on TV a few years after.
Yeah.
It's still repeated a lot now, and it is still talked about.
It on the Horror Channel.
Yeah, the Horror Channel's brilliant. But a friend of mine recently mentioned it, she's 2 or 3 years younger than me, and couldn't get through it and hated it.
Really? And
I was just like, really? Yeah, that's my sort of, it's stupid. I don't like Kevin Bacon anyway. It's like, well, there's 2 things wrong with this. Yeah, but what I like about Kevin Bacon, in this film, he's so likeable. And he's a bit annoying, but that's what's likeable. You know how Bill Murray can be annoying?
Yes.
He's got that sort of comedy charm. And then you can watch him as a villain in something, and you would think it's a different person.
Yeah.
Even though he's got that very distinctive look, he's got Kevin Bacon's face, which I think when you're doing a film like this, that if you can get a good actor to be in it, it's like when you look at a film like Halloween and you've got Donald Pleasance, and to a certain respect, going back to Star Wars, that Alec Guinness was in it. Incredible actors like Peter Cushing. Yeah. So I think with films like this, it gives it that sense of, it isn't just a trashy film if you've got good actors in it.
Legitimacy. That's
the word. So, yeah. So anything else you want to mention? I mean, I think this is one that we're just praising it, but there's not much to pick fault with. I mean, these are films I really like. But I think the people who wouldn't like it are the ones who just don't like monster movies.
Who are these people? Give me their addresses and we'll go and rough them up.
10 Downing Street. So
that is a monster movie.
Satire
here.
Oi oi. So it's 7.1 it's got on IMDb, which for a monster film is pretty good. Yeah. And I will describe it as a monster film. Yeah. I think the original poster, they didn't have the monster on it because I couldn't find this, or maybe it was what it was intended to be. And then now the poster is, you see the thing underneath the 3 main characters standing above, don't you? Have you seen the poster?
Oh yeah.
Which looks pretty cool. But 7.1 on IMDb, which is possibly the highest out of any film we've done for this.
Yeah,
but not by a lot. But it is. I mean, what was your rating?
It's got to be a big old 9, I reckon.
Big old 9. Yeah, that's for what it is.
Flawless.
So it is a 10, but you can't give anything a 10. So for me, it's an 8 or 9. It's a strong 4 out of 5.
Yeah, definitely.
Or
Roger Ebert 3.5 out of 4.
What's that all about? So yeah, I mean, the sequels are justified, but it's one of those that none of the sequels has taken anything away from this film.
Yeah,
to be watched as a standalone. Yeah, it is pretty much perfect, and in a way, because the 2 main characters in it, or the main character in it, really, Kevin Bacon, isn't in many of the sequels, or any of the sequels. Fred Ward's in one. Then you've got characters like, is it Melvin? He's in one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And the little girl comes back. So there's little references, but yeah, it's become this franchise. But to get a franchise out of a film which didn't do very well in the first place is pretty cool.
Yeah. So the one thing I would have thought, or that I thought was interesting watching it, is looking at that, the sort of main duo in it, and thinking, it would have been cool to have seen Bill and Ted in a film like this.
Yeah.
Because if they'd done a Bill and Ted 3 in the late 90s, I think they'd have had to have gone that route.
Yeah, do something a bit different.
Out there.
But
I think that would have been fun.
But this is another thing that what I think is quite cool about it. The characters, for that era, I mean, this was the same year as Bogus Journey, and you had these sort of dopey teenager films. It would have been a lot easier for them to put in characters like that. But instead they've gone for, I mean, Kevin Bacon in it, what would he be, about 30, his character? And then the sort of 45-year-old person he works with. I think that's quite nice and different. And it does work. And you've got the female lead who's like what is she? She's a scientist type, studying the earthquakes, isn't she?
Yeah, seismologist.
That's it. And that bit isn't too original, but you
more or
need
less
that
the same character who's in Super Mario Brothers, isn't it?
kind of.
And
yeah,
to be
yeah.
fair, those
Yeah.
two in Super
But-
Mario Brothers could have been quite entertaining.
That's true. But I think you need that character because you need someone the brains.
Yeah,
You need that because
Grounds
you've got
it
the
more in
bungling.
reality.
Yeah, the bungling too, and the fact there's bits in it where they expect her to know all the answers. And she's like, "How am I supposed to know?" So yeah, I mean it's a very interesting film, but for all the right reasons.
Yes.
Apart from the fact that it didn't do so well. I think it's a film that probably couldn't be made now to the same extent because
No,
it would either be
good.
it would. I think now that like you said, the tone, it would either be a silly, almost like Monster Trucks PG crazy,
yeah.
or an out and out darker, almost Quiet Place type film.
Yeah,
So-
I do sometimes think that maybe if they'd leaned into this slightly darker, weirder, and say slightly kind of Men in Black-esque, kind of that slightly sick humour, that
Yeah.
I might have enjoyed it more. But there's a danger it might have made it much worse.
Yeah,
So I
I mean,
wouldn't
is that touch
necessarily
on,
advocate.
on silliness, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, for what it is, I would say I think we're struggling to pick.
Oh yeah,
Possibly.
definitely, yeah.
So we should probably wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Would you say this is your favourite out of the ones you've joined in?
Oh
for?
yeah, definitely.
Good. Nice to hear. I'm only going to do a few more episodes of this series, but do come back if we can. If not next series, and thanks to everyone who's listened. I think this is the 7th episode.
Time flies.
So
when you're watching films.
thank you very much, and do please leave comments on the Facebook page where there's a link via the Anchor site, or it's on Spotify. You can find us, ACM's World Cult. Very much appreciated. Until next time, keep watching those films, keep watching trash, keep enjoying trash. It's not all about the Oscars, thank God.